All right, so today I'm sitting down and talking with my buddy, Michael Streda. And if you have been to Nosara, Costa Rica, then you probably have visited his landmark restaurant, Beach Dog. It was actually the first restaurant I ever dined at when I came here to Nosara in 2015. And over the years, seen Michael around, got to know him. And the more I get to know him, the more I realize we have so much in common. So I'm happy that we finally got the chance to sit down today and chat about your story, about your journey, about what brought you here to Nosara, and yeah, just share about your journey and and your inspiring story. Because from what I know about you, I'm impressed, and I connect with your story, and and what you're up to, I think is really, really, really important. So thanks for joining me. And yeah, so who were you, and what was life like before you end up here in this dusty little beach town, Nosara?
Well, first, just like as we came in to do this podcast today, it's interesting to think that somebody even wants to do a podcast about me. like that I'm that important, or that I have that sort of that I've brought things to this world that are important enough to talk about. So that humbles me, and I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's nice to finally sit down, because we're both busy, and just trying to sit down with somebody sometimes is such a difficult
mission
thing, a mission. So my life before Nosara, to give you the short story, born in Windsor, Ontario, left there at 18 after high school to follow my dream of becoming a professional snowboarder, and ended up working at night in different clubs as a barback and restaurants, so you could snowboard all day and work in the night. Never became pro. Did some contests, had a lot of fun, and just worked. Just got into the service industry. I was there for about 12 years, and then my partner and I at the time decided to go on a trip to Nosara. We had come to Costa Rica once before, Tamarindo. Came to Nosara for a month, sitting on the beach reading Eckhart Tolle. Had like a network marketing job where I was making a little bit of residual income, and had this like epiphany moment, like, what am I doing? My life's sort of a mirage. I've borrowed all this money from the bank, and I'm basically just paying down interest every month, and I'm working my ass off, 3 jobs just to like keep this thing alive that, wasn't really necessary. So with that, after we came to Nosara, we went back, and we're just like gave shit back to the bank. I wasn't even trying to sell it. I was like, come get my car. It's in the driveway. You own it. I don't, pick it up. I'm out, So we came down, and Beach Dog, there was something else I was coming down to Nosara to do. It was like a little rental casita. And in the meantime, my real estate buddy had messaged me and was like, there's a restaurant these guys are trying to sell, would you? And I was at that point, I was working in 3 different restaurants, like a sous chef, and just hustling. So I liked the idea of having my own restaurant. That was like daily income, rather than at that point when Nosara, the rental industry back in Nosara in 2009, 2010 was not what it is now. So I thought that would be a better business opportunity, would be to, have a restaurant and still do that. But quickly, I just got rid of that, and just the restaurant was more than enough. And it was funny because when I was moving down to Nosara to open the restaurant, I thought I knew a lot about restaurants.
Yeah.
Until I opened my own in another country and with another language, and realized how green I was really quick. And then I got to learn about all the loopholes and all the hoops, that I had to jump through, and the issues that it would be to create business down here in those early days.
Yeah, so you touched on something that is quite the phenomenon that happens down here. People come for a 1-2 week vacation, come do a yoga retreat or surf camp, and then they have that moment sitting on the beach realizing, oh, wait a minute, like, this could be life. Like, this is actually how I want to live, and then you really start reevaluating all the shit you own back home, and the hustle, the grind, just to own all this stuff that really, at the end of the day, doesn't even make you happy, because here you are on the beach, whether with your dog or in the ocean or chilling in the jungle, and you're just like, wow, this is life. And it's interesting that Nosara is one of those places that really causes you to question, am I really happy? Am I really living the life that I'm destined to live, And I mean, that was one of the big draw for me when I moved down here. It's going through my transition. I just felt like Nosara was a place where I can have that stillness and space to really like reevaluate like what's happening in my life.
Yeah, it's interesting because people say that they feel it, they want it, but most of them come and sort of recreate the same bullshit that they had back home. Not so much. I didn't see it so much in the beginning years, like back in 2010, 11, and 12. People were a little bit more modest, with what they were building and what they were driving, and then there was like this I don't know. And again, there's no judgment on it, but it's through the changes. It's like people build the same size house, they drive the same kind of truck or the same set of car, and it's interesting. It's just interesting that we try to leave something behind, but it's comfortable. So when we come here, we want to create a little bit of that comfort because we don't want to get too uncomfortable,
Yeah.
because then it brings up too much stuff, maybe. But still, I mean, there's something that definitely pulls you in. The jungle pulls you in. The ability just to walk on the beach and be in nature, no matter what, it's different. So, I mean, I respect everybody for making those transitions because they're hard.
Absolutely.
No matter what, no matter if you bring some comforts with you or not,
Yeah.
it's not easy, and it's a big commitment. So
Yeah. And, the lesson I've learned being here is really the jungle is going to test you.
mm,
The Pura Vida lifestyle sounds amazing, and it is, but it doesn't come easy.
yeah.
There's a lot of patience and surrender required. And in that space of the stillness and the growth also comes a lot of the shit that comes up.
Mhm.
And, I often say Nosara is a place that will make or break you, whether it be your relationship, your marriage, your identity. Like when I was down here the first couple of years, a lot of my stuff from the past came up, and there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, no one to be, no way to distract myself. It's just like you got to sit in it.
Mm.
And I think that's part of the reason why Nosara is such a transformational place, because if you're willing to sit in it, then you get faced with a lot of stuff that you've been pushing down and you've been suppressing, and now's a chance to work on it. And I think that's why a lot of people also come here, is because they're ready to face what it is that they've been hiding from. And I know a lot of people come here for recovery, for rehab. They come here to, kind of start over, like myself. I knew I wanted a clean slate. I wanted to be out of Toronto. If you're willing to sit in it and face what comes up, then there's huge opportunity for growth and it's evolution. And I can imagine you being down here 13 years. You've been through your fair share of twists and turns in your journey. And I know, obviously we've spoken about your path and what it's been like to be an entrepreneur, to leave Canada, to move down here, to start all over, start fresh. I guess what have been some of the biggest challenges and lessons that you've learned making such a drastic change in your life?
I mean, the trials and tribulations of this 13 years. I mean, there's definitely been a lot. It's you mentioned relationships, and I came down with somebody that I was in a relationship with for 12 years prior to that, and within 3 years, that relationship went separate ways. Went their separate ways because I started to grow in one direction, and she wasn't ready to grow in her own way. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Like you said, you get to see, you face your own stuff, and you realize maybe the hustle and bustle of back home or whatever was going on there sort of maybe didn't really allow you to have that space to sort of see what's going on, or didn't give you opportunity to grow maybe. And then here there's more opportunity to do different things or to not do things that maybe would distract you before. So that my own personal growth, my own personal journey and growth definitely created that separation. Then I had some free time. Then I had another relationship, which also, has moved on. So those things, and as far as the business aspect goes, uh, for me, it was my first real entrepreneurial journey. I worked for other people, back home, and starting this restaurant, not knowing Spanish. There was a lot of stuff, and back then, even like it was a little bit more wild west still, and the permits and that were a lot looser. And as I came here, that started to change. So, and I remember even people like, I didn't have a handicapped washroom back then, and nor did anybody. But somebody ratted me out from the community. Another restaurant didn't want me coming in. It was like, oh,
Out of jealousy.
or they're gonna take business, and we don't want. It was more like nowadays that's not like that. Everybody's so welcoming, but and not that they weren't welcoming, but it was just those were some of the things I had to deal with, and dealing with 6 months out of the year where nobody was here.
Right.
It was really that slow, and there was months where we would sit and have 4 or 5 people come through, in those rainy times. So yeah, this place tests you in many different ways, and in the business, and it still tests you in the business, because they're constantly changing regulations and laws and new taxes.
The last 2 years haven't made things any easier, of course.
Yeah, and COVID and all these different things. So
with being down here and going through different relationships, different business challenges, what would you say has been some of the biggest areas of maybe your own personal growth, like with your evolution as a human?
I mean, when I came, I came with a lot of baggage for sure that I didn't know I had, and when I started that personal growth journey, I got into plant medicine. And that started unpacking things quickly. And that's why that first relationship, went the ways it did, because I was on that personal growth journey of wanting to, get off the drugs, and alcohol, that I was on. And not that I was, wasn't an addict or anything, but I was back in Canada too. It's like the industry,
part of the lifestyle,
part of the industry, and the kitchens and in the restaurants and the bars, and it's, I think everybody goes through that part. Everybody wants to have fun and party, and you come to Costa Rica, it doesn't make it any easier. If not, makes it a little harder, because there's more space and downtime, and what do you fill your downtime with? So as I tried to shake that off and grow through it, that was one of the biggest growth aspects for sure. And with all that came, reaction and anger and judgment, and for myself and for others. And I think for all of us, those are kind of the basic ones, speaking your truth, being true to yourself, true to your own needs, not trying to just do things for your partner or for others. Also, not allowing others to influence you or change your direction or your drive. Even customers, coming in, I got a great idea, you should really do this. It's like everybody's got a great idea for you, while they're not doing something, for themselves. And everybody wants to give you those ideas, and sort of not being reactionary to that stuff. And I'm still unwinding all of that, though. The growth, this transformational process that we're all here to go through.
It never ends.
It never ends.
Just when you think you figured something out, there's a whole other layer of shit to deal with.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really important for people to know. Because people think that, I'm going to transform, I'm going to do this plant medicine, I'm going to take this journey, and I'm going to be healed.
Yeah.
I'm going to be enlightened. And I'm going to, and it's like,
yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because one of the parallels is the journey of plant medicine, and how it's helped you in many ways and helped you heal, and also has put you on a different path, which we'll speak about. And a lot of people, whether it be psilocybin, iboga, ayahuasca, I don't want to say it's a new trendy thing, but people feel that it's going to be their fast track to rapid healing. You know, people think that, oh, my life's a mess, things are a disaster. I'll go to Peru, I'll go to Costa Rica, I'll drink some ayahuasca, and everything's going to be okay. And you know, I know that you probably get asked that a lot. You know, with what you do over at Sacred Playground, I get asked all the time about, you know, ayahuasca and psilocybin, because people who are looking to fast track their healing, they're thinking, oh, I'm going to fly down to Peru or Costa Rica for a week, drink ayahuasca with some shamans, and all my life's problems are going to go away. And I mean, you know better than anyone, that's not the way it works. And it almost seems like plant medicine is like the new trendy thing that people are jumping on, rather than doing the internal work, rather than sitting in their shit, which can be painful and difficult and sometimes take years, even decades. People like want to fast track the process and get right into that. And you know, I know obviously you have a lot of experience with the medicine, and you've, you know, supported me in the past. You know, for those of you that follow me know that I'm a big psilocybin advocate. My first big hero dose journey was with Mr. Streda here, who facilitated a ceremony, a one-on-one ceremony for me, which was amazing. And I know this is something that obviously you're passionate about, that you you share this medicine with people. And you know, for those that are curious about doing the medicine, for those that are curious about ceremony to try to heal or to grow or evolve, you know, would love for you to share your wisdom on, you know, how people can really, I guess, prepare for the medicine.
Yeah, well, to sort of touch a little bit, just to go back a little bit in what you're saying about the fast track and in the trendiness. It's interesting because when in 2012, I was asked if I wanted to do ayahuasca here in Nosara, and I'd actually never heard of it.
That's 10 years ago. That's like way back.
And I'd never heard of it, but you know, in my youth, I'd recreationally done, you know, psilocybin and taken LSD and smoked marijuana, and I'm in, you know, sounds fun. We couldn't find 6 people.
Oh, wow.
We had to have 6 people minimum. We couldn't find 6 people at that point, you know, and now it's like you can fill a room with 100 a day, you know, so it's just interesting how it's really, really grown. And I think there's a lot of positive parts of that, you know, that growth. And sure, there is a fast track aspect to it. You know, it definitely in a short amount of time, in one night, can show you a lot of shit real quick that you forgot was even in there, you know, or that you know you had, or and it doesn't take it away, it brings it up. You know, it brings it to the forefront. And then it's the integration that sort of helps, you know, take it away, which is like the next sort of thing. And I mean, for me, it's such a conversation with so many people now. They want to come in and they want, like you said, they want it to happen. They want it to be like, I'm coming in for a night and I'm out and I'm going to be healed. And that's not the way it works. I think that we're doing a discredit to the medicine and to this tradition to believe that that's how it's going to be. And it's interesting to try to teach people that, or at least give them the understanding that moment in those ceremonies is, again, just a key that's unlocking these things in your life that you need to work on for decades after.
Yeah.
You know, even just one good ceremony can take years to unpack. And if you don't give yourself that time and you don't give yourself the time and the credit to sort of work through it in that manner, then then you're not really honoring the medicine or yourself. And I lost track a little bit, sorry, of what you wanted me to answer.
Yeah, no problem. So, you know, as you said, integration is equally as important to the ceremony. And I think that's where a lot of people don't really get the full value of the medicine. It's because they don't have a practice going into ceremony.
Exactly,
they're not meditating. They don't spend time with themselves to have the self-awareness and to at least have an understanding of what is my intention of doing the ceremony. Like, yes, maybe I've had problems with my parents, or maybe there was some abuse, or maybe, you know, you have some anger issues. Okay. Sit in that, feel it out, try to understand it yourself before going to the medicine, because I know there are people who have done ceremony and got nothing from it. They just fell asleep, and in the morning they had nothing, because the medicine knew that that person wasn't ready to see what there was to discover. Because if you don't have a practice, if you don't have your own support system, your own, if you don't have the ability to comprehend and integrate what the medicine is going to show you, it can actually leave you in a worse place than you were going in, because
100%.
you may discover you were sexually abused at 3 years old, but your conscious mind has blocked that from your memory.
And because you came in without tools, now you have no tools to even figure out, how do I live with that now? And now I have something that's, creating more trauma in my life than it even did before, because now it's in the forefront.
People, if they don't have support with integrating, they could be in a worse place than they actually went in. So,
yeah, we were talking about the tools and not having them beforehand, which I mean is fine.
So one thing, so what the question I asked you is, what would you suggest, to people who are, and you can even tie this in, saying, after having done X amount of ceremonies, I start to learn how to serve the medicine. And the advice I give people who are interested in wanting the medicine, like, do you have a process or anything you tell people about? Or when people say, oh, I want to come do ayahuasca, like, do you have any advice for them or anything that you normally share? I mean, however you want to introduce that you serve medicine, totally up to you. And again, whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, first we were talking about the people are coming with this expectation that they're going to come, they're going to drink medicine or take mushrooms, and it's going to relieve them of their problems. And again, we're speaking about how it sort of more reveals rather than relieves them. It reveals your problems to you in a more conscious way, from a different perspective. And then it's about, with the person that you're working with, which hopefully you're working with somebody, or you have somebody set up afterwards to help you unravel and understand how to then live in that way, in this higher conscious way, with these perspectives, and how do I implement some tools in my life to sort of, one, keep me connected to that ceremony feeling, that or the morning after feeling, where sometimes it's beautiful and fresh and reset, before I go back into my regular daily life, and life just starts pounding at me again and putting more shit on me, because it does. So it's like, if you're coming to relieve yourself of these problems, what are you doing to sort of help yourself not take those problems back on? Because life is constantly going to give you things that can traumatize you or bring you reaction or anger or whatever it is. So, you mentioned that you and I had shared a ceremony together. For me, it was an interesting process to get to that point, to be able to serve medicine or facilitate in a journey with somebody. It was after about 8 years of doing ayahuasca, I went to Peru, and I spent a week there with an amazing family. And that was the real deal deep dive. And it really surpassed any and all of the ceremonies I'd ever done before that, connected or altogether. It really was, it was so much more than anything I'd experienced before. And I was, when I went there, I was sort of over the medicine in a way. I was tired of these giant groups of people stepping over each other to heal themselves, and especially since I'd come from a place where it was like 6 or 8 people, and then we got into these like 40, 50 people ceremony. It was just too much. So I went to Peru, and it was, again, a small ceremony, and it was more intimate, and there was a lot more personal work with the shamans, and it was different. So when I was leaving there, the shaman that I became very close with, I asked him, how can I continue this healing journey in such a way where I don't have to go back into these big ceremonies? And he said, well, start working with psilocybin. And with that, I started working personally on my own in these deep ways, alone in the dark, and through those journeys, my higher self spoke to me in such a way that mentioned to me, was like, "Hey, Mike, you should probably help people this way and help facilitate these things." And I was like, "No fucking way, dude. I don't know. Who am I? Who am I to sit and help somebody through their stuff? I'm just getting over my own stuff." So over time, I just started to listen to my higher self in a different way, and trust. And I did some work with different people and just different things that allowed me to sort of start believing in myself, believing in that voice that we sort of stuff aside. We seem to listen to one voice, and the one that's actually really important, we sort of put that one down a lot of times. So over time, I just, I had a buddy who was a breathwork facilitator. We sort of swapped a ceremony, and there was a great outcome in that, and then that just progressed and progressed and progressed, and then sort of word was on the street that that I was able to help people help themselves in this way and hold some beautiful space. And I was playing elemental instruments and sort of created this kind of like ayahuasca feel, and never did I ever pretend that I was a shaman or a healer or anything like that. I was just somebody that could sit there with you, play some music, and understand what you've been through, because I'd been through a lot, in my life. I've unraveled a lot of stuff back to, some stuff when I was younger, some issues I had, some traumas growing up, and just the usual stuff that we all have, and we've all gone through it. We're all going through it. And I think that's what makes it easy to sit with somebody like me, regular guy with tattoos, and just, I've been through it, and people feel that, and they feel safe in that space. So that's sort of been the journey, to this space holding space that we shared, and where the medicines brought me, and then allowed me to create more magical experiences for people in different ways, with or without medicine. Just helping people find their child heart, and using different modalities to find play and joy again. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. I believe that's the journey for most of us, that when we are at a point where and not that we're ever fully healed or we're ever fully complete, but we get to a point where we understand our traumas, our wounds, and we've made some progress and learned a thing or two about healing. It's our human nature that we want to help others with their healing journey, and that's why I'm such an advocate for psilocybin and plant medicine, and why I started hosting retreats and coaching, is because I realized that 7 years ago I was oblivious to all of this work, and I lived a very unconscious, unintentional life that was driven by my wounds and my insecurities. And then I started diving in, and to your point before, like, plant medicine, yes, it is an accelerator and it will open things up faster. But thankfully, I was already into my own personal development work 2 to 3 years before I started mixing with the plant medicine. And I share it publicly, and I've invested into companies that serve and are in the process of legalizing psilocybin for mental health benefits, because this is ancient wisdom. This is medicine that's been around for thousands of years, that has helped humanity grow and evolve and expand their consciousness for centuries now. And of course, mushrooms and LSD and MDMA and even ayahuasca, a lot of these psychedelics have gotten a really bad rap. People think you're gonna, like, that you can overdose on mushrooms, and that you're gonna get high and jump out of a 10-story apartment building window, right? And part of the reason why I advocate for it and share the information is there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of confusion around what is magic mushrooms, how do they benefit you? Because most people watching this podcast or listening to this, they probably messed around with mushrooms like back in high school, or went to a rave or club or something, and that's fun and all. That can be an enlightening, entertaining experience. But when you participate in ceremony like I did with you, consuming somewhere between 6 to 7 grams, blindfold, laying down, music, live instruments. I mean, that was a whole other journey in itself. And yeah, I think that's where there's a misunderstanding in people not like they're so stuck in the belief that mushrooms are like this party substance that gets you all fucked up and you're going to do crazy shit, and they don't see it as medicine. Like it's a way to access that pain, that trauma, those memories that are deep within us that we are too afraid to touch, and the medicine allows us to see that again and to be with it and to really process it, because they say like until you could feel it you can't heal it. And if you're not even aware of it because you shut it down and you pushed it so far into your subconscious that sometimes therapy can't even access it. And can psilocybin help you heal faster? Absolutely. And there's a way to go about it. There's a way to do it. And, I think it's beautiful what you're doing with how you set it up, with how you hold space and, create these beautiful ceremonies that feel very, they feel comfortable, they feel protected. You've created a beautiful, unique place, the sacred playground. And, I don't know if it was your intention when you created it to possibly one day, facilitate these types of ceremonies, but it's such a unique, cool environment, and setting is so important when participating in these type of experiences. So I'm curious to know, like, what was your inspiration behind Sacred Playground, and what's your future vision for where you hope it to evolve to?
Yeah, I mean, the inspiration came from a lot of places. One was I wanted a refuge, a place away from the ocean in case there was a tsunami.
Yeah.
Okay. We live near the beach in Nosara, and I wanted a place that was safe, that was away from the ocean, that was also a place I could grow food. I have a restaurant, as we talked about, grow organic food. I saw people wasting so much of their food in certain ways and becoming unconscious with their connection with food. So I wanted to create a place that people could come and dine and walk through the gardens and have these like edible journeys where they could sort of reconnect with the plants and with seeing how things are grown and how much it takes to grow, kale or tomato. And it's funny, there's so many people that don't know, and then they go to a restaurant and they order this food and they throw half of it away, and they don't really have any respect for the time and energy for all of it. Never mind the cook who cooked it, or the owner who purchased it,
or the farmer
who grew it, and all. There's so many steps for that little cherry tomato to get to your plate, So that was one of them. So there's a lot of different intention, and then having a space where I could personally do my own journeys that wasn't in an apartment above my restaurant, and a place that I could help facilitate friends that wasn't an apartment above my restaurant or at another facility that I was allowed to work at and do these different things. So lots of different intentions coming in to one magical space. There were some other things I wanted to touch on that you mentioned, but now I've lost them.
Yeah. So just as far as it evolving as a concept, because it's been growing, it's been evolving, it's been expanding. So I don't know if there's anything you want to share about, because you've also hosted a number of different type of events there that are pretty unique.
Yeah. And some of the other things that we do there, some of the things we do at the Sacred Playground, again, are very child heart orientated, in a sense. And I think that, even the medicine brings that up, brings us back to those childhood memories. Psilocybin is very playful, can be. I remember, even in our journey, it was very fun, serious, it's that seriousness and the fun and all of that sort of mixing together, which is interesting, which is important. And just touching back on the psilocybin factor, and that was one of the big intentions for me, was bringing the sacredness back to the mushroom. Even my own past history with it, like you said, which was with buddies. And, I wasn't really a guy who went to the bar on psilocybin, but I knew a lot of people who did. And it's like, that is an ancient technology, a sacred ancient technology that needs to be used in the right ways. And I think people still are a little loose around it. I think, they still think, it's just mushrooms. It's not ayahuasca. It's just mushrooms. We can do it. We can have a part. We can have a group at the house, and Joe will facilitate, and maybe Joe's done one little journey. It's like, but people can go through some heavy stuff.
Absolutely.
People can really dive into deep space and deep trauma, and we are responsible, or whoever is holding that space is responsible to make sure that person has a positive outcome. So creating that setting in a place like the Sacred Playground, with that jungle, with that ancient lineage that resided in that area, around the Nosara River, the Chortegas, some of the just those ancient ways, they're still felt there. So I think when you step on that property, you're held in a different way. You're held in nature. So the setting really helps. And we do lots of different events there. We bring in community days and ecstatic dance and cacao ceremonies. And we had Rodrigo Gallardo, who's a musician. Just all different types of events that bring joy and laughter and music and fun, and community days, and all the different modalities, sound healings, whatever it is that people want to bring to the space that is in alignment with sort of growth and laughter and play. We like to facilitate.
Yeah, because those are all healing modalities, like being able to do an ecstatic dance and let yourself feel the music and shake and get wild. I mean, that's all healing. Like those are different ways that we are able to reconnect with that young child in us. Shake off the stress, let go of all the tension that we hold on to, and and it's important. When I think of Sacred Playground, I almost think of it as like an adult, a place for adults to let loose and have fun. Like, you've created a place that gives permission to the adults to come and act like kids.
Yeah, it's a spiritual Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, I like that. Spiritual, a conscious Chuck E. Cheese. I like that. Yeah,
we're gonna start dressing up in costumes and running around. No,
yeah,
and the future. I mean, you mentioned like what is the growth?
Yeah, because as I've seen it evolve and grow over the last 2 years, now it's expanded. Now you've got tents and accommodations. Like you it seems like you got a big vision for it as it continues to expand.
Yeah, it's been about a 3-year process of this sort of unraveling of it, which is actually was unknowingly a vision that came through me in Peru, and has led me down this path over the last 7 years, basically. And as we keep building and putting in the natural pool and the pond system, and first it was the tents, now we just built a casita, and we have a geometric dome. So we have the accommodations finally, so people can stay and do longer retreats and bringing things in. For me, it's almost at where I want it to be. It doesn't need to keep expanding in any more ways. I think that it's a very important, just like doing a ceremony, like it's important to integrate, like finish the building and just let it settle, let the energy settle, let people come, let's do the work, and let's see. It's important to let things unfold in their own way and not push.
Absolutely.
Keep pushing, and we'll see. Maybe a few more rooms. We're finishing up the temple, and no, I mean I think we always want to work in these small groups too. Obviously we have community days and events where we bring in more people, but when we do the intimate work, that's what I like the most. And nice. I think that there's not a lot of places doing that. I think it's part of the market, for lack of better words. It's needed to do private, semi-private, small groups. People can have a lot more one-on-one time with facilitators and with the healers and the shamans, and really like be more vulnerable. And it's sometimes in bigger groups, there's a lot of energy to deal with, and maybe there's somebody you don't really,
Yeah,
vibe
because you got
with,
places like Rhythmia and Soltara and even like One Heart
and
Journeys. Like,
all very necessary.
yeah.
And there's nothing against
Mhm.
those. Like those places are all doing beautiful work and they're very necessary. But I also, I think that this is necessary.
Mhm.
Like everything in life, right? Everybody, we need a vast, we need
Selection
selection
options. Yeah.
and options of
Hmm.
places to go. And I just personally like working in those smaller groups. Um, it's interesting. There's no real segue into this, but it's just really interesting that what all of this work is now unraveling in me.
Hmm.
Um, and after these 13 years of doing this work and creating this
Hmm.
space, and sort of almost at the finish line of the creation of that space, is now I'm like, I need to like integrate back into the real world,
Mm. Yeah.
in a different
Yeah.
way. And it's been 13 years. It's weird that 12 to 13 years is exactly what I spent in Whistler.
Hmm.
And I was ready to go,
Yeah.
and now I'm at this 12 or 13 years in Nosara. And like literally a month ago, at the end of, or just no, weeks ago, at the end of April, we finished a big stint of retreats.
Mm.
And I'm finally integrating, and I'm like, fuck, I kind of need to go back to the concrete jungle a little bit,
Yeah.
which is like really weird for me to even tell myself, and
Yeah.
I'm judging myself for it. But I'm also understanding the balance, and this is what
Mm.
we try to help people understand. I don't like the word teach
Hmm.
for some reason, but we try to help people understand that this work is about being human.
Mm.
It's not about being the most spiritual person you could ever be and
Hmm.
get lost in it, because that doesn't help us.
Hmm.
What we need to do is become, conscious, as conscious as we can. And then, like you said, help others become more conscious. But if we just sit in these selective communities
Hmm.
and create, you know, community properties where we're all like-minded and we're all just sitting around talking about that to each other, how does that help the collective in a bigger way?
Agreed. Yeah.
And it's weird to say, and I don't even know the answer, because I'm
Hmm.
I'm just very much, it's very fresh in my mind. And I judge myself again for
Hmm.
feeling these ways, which I don't want to do. But there's a balance. There's a balance for me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is me speaking about my journey.
Yeah.
And again, I don't I don't say that that's right for everybody, and maybe there are people that that's what they want,
Hmm.
and that's beautiful. But for me, what I'm starting to feel is like, I want to take this message, I want to take this new consciousness, these new
Mm. Yeah.
perspectives, and be able to go and hang out in different
For
places
sure.
where maybe people don't get to talk about that stuff so
Yeah.
much,
Yeah.
and
That's
have
important.
these conversations, because it's all I know now.
Hmm.
So that if I'm in a place in San Jose and I'm having dinner and I meet some new friends, some new people, and they're like, "What do you do?"
Hmm.
This is what I do. And they're like, well, wow, that's interesting. I've
Yeah.
never been. And it's like, that's what I have
Yeah.
to
You're
speak
creating an
about.
opening
So
there.
now
Yeah.
we're creating new
Hmm.
conversations. Whereas if I'm at Norte in Nosara,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, Mike, how's it going? We know what you're doing. It's
Yeah.
like, it
Yeah.
becomes the same conversations,
Yeah.
And for me, that's an interesting new perspective,
Yeah.
for me. And again, I still love that,
Hmm.
but I need to balance it out with something else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that I really relate to what you're sharing. I tell people I love living in Nosara and I love leaving Nosara
mm,
because, last 3.5 years being here in that deep dive of this beautiful conscious collective, well, this conscious collective bubble here, where talking about plant medicine and afterlife and Akashic records and
yeah,
all of this is like normal talk
right.
in any day here in Nosara. And then,
Just lunch talk.
just lunch talk for sure. Going back and forth to Toronto and, having spent some time in Miami recently, I realized, wow, the duality of it, it's like stepping into a different dimension. And, I feel it is necessary for people like you and I who are doing this work and who are really rooted or well versed in this mindset, this consciousness, this medicine, to share it with others who, might not have access or the um, wouldn't have the access to this real first person one-to-one experience. And I as well recently, started to reconnect and enjoy some of the things that I used to like from my past life, whether it be driving a Porsche, whether it be dating again, eating in fancy restaurants, buying nice clothes again. For the last 3 years, I've been pretty minimalist, pretty simple. And there's this misconception that to be spiritual or conscious, you got to like give everything away and you got to be like meditating in a robe on a fucking mountain somewhere and denounce all wealth. And, none of that's needed anymore. And I'm not going to lie, for a while, I did believe that, but it was also helpful for me to believe that because I wasn't in a great financial position. I didn't know where I fit anymore. So it's easier just to like get rid of everything and say, I don't need it. I'm spiritual now, than to say, fuck, I like that stuff and I can't afford it. And, dipping back into Toronto and Miami periodically this past year has reminded me like, okay, there's some materialistic stuff that I still actually really like. And I'm still spiritual and conscious. I can still be a good person, be a great coach, help people with their spiritual journey, and rock really nice designer shit if I want. Like I can have both and there's nothing wrong with it. So I understand what you're saying about almost feeling bad about liking that stuff. And if that's what lights you up, it's okay. And
we're only here once or this one.
Yeah.
This one. And like the point is the human experience. We're here for human experience. And all that material stuff is part of it, and it's about balance, 100%. The other thing, which is funny about like going back into the matrix, we'll say is like, it really shows you like, have you been doing the work?
100%.
As you sit in traffic, are you frustrated? Are you having road rage again? What's the point of getting spiritual if you can't use that? That's the point, is to use it in regular life and have that compassion for people, not have judgment, not have anger. That's what we worked on, getting rid of it. So it's like, sitting on the mountaintop with the birds playing a flute all day, fuck, of course you're not going to get upset at anything, But if you go back in,
that's when you
really
doing
test
the work.
it.
Yeah.
It's
And that's when you find out like, is the work really embodied? Have I actually like really embodied this work? Or are these just tools and techniques and exercises I use to like be all Zen and shit, but have I really embodied that?
To say I'm Zen.
Yeah. An identity, a role, and that's something that I struggled with as well, going back and forth to Toronto. Like, okay, like, was this just a new identity I adopted?
Right.
What does it mean to be spiritual? What does it mean to be conscious? And it's when you're back in that old environment and the triggers are around and some of those old vices or habits that you used to indulge in are there in your face. And it's like, okay, in this moment, what am I choosing? How am I wanting to show up at this point, with what I'm faced with right now? Am I still able to honor my values and be in integrity with what I say I'm about? And I think that's where a lot of people maybe fall off. It's like you said, it's easy to be Zen and easy to be living a certain lifestyle when you're in a town like Nosara, but can you still be that solid Zen conscious person when you're back into the eye of the matrix, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the next test, I guess, for me, it's when I came here, like I never left, in the beginning I would leave to go to Nicaragua for border runs and stuff. I went back to Canada once,
okay,
and I've just been here,
so
I didn't, and a lot of other people that come, they do go back, every once a year, twice a year, they go back to Canada, they go back to Miami, they go to New York. But for me, it's been a long stint, I haven't gone back to North America in 8 years or something,
wow.
9 years,
okay.
So it's just been little other, Colombia or Peru or whatever, which again is still very, very otherworldly. So, but San Jose is very close and there's very much matrixy stuff there. And I've been enjoying going back into that space a little bit more. And and just being wowed by the amount of people
Yeah.
and the chaos that is a Friday night, or the first of the month when everybody gets paid
Yeah.
and runs to the mall, and it's
Yeah.
just like, yeah. But again, it tests me.
Hmm.
It tests me in new ways and in different ways, and I'm sort of enjoying that balance a little
Yeah.
bit more than I was before.
And that's it. It's all about the balance. And until you are able to experience both sides of the duality, you're not able to appreciate one to the full extent.
Exactly, and
So.
that's what's so important about leaving.
Hmm.
Always about stepping outside of your normal day and going somewhere else, and having that perspective of,
Hmm.
just like in the medicine, it's like you get to shift perspective, right? And like look back from like a third party, like, is this what I really love?
Yeah.
Do I am I am I am I integral? Am I enjoying my life the way I should? Is this where I want to be?
Hmm.
And it does. And even just going away for a couple of days down to the city, for me, it's like I love it. And then when I get back to the farm, I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
cool. I appreciate it more when I'm just there every day, it's work.
Yeah.
It becomes work every day. So having that balance. I'm lucky as well right now that I have an amazing new partner who's Costa Rican,
Mhm.
and it's a little family. She has a daughter, and I'm at a new place where I'm getting to be something new.
Mm.
It's a whole new step for me, and I'm very, very honored and humbled to be able to be in that position and help raise a little girl in the best capacity that I can at this point, and even it being new, and the acceptance that's there for her to me and me to her, and I have a lot of great support, and that's been great for me in the last little while, because earlier in the podcast we were talking about the relationships that were severed,
Mm-hmm.
through this process of growth. But luckily, now I've grown, and obviously I'll continue to grow, but I'm in such a growth space that in this relationship, I'm really using the tools
Mm.
that I never was before. I didn't have them, and I think that's important that we realize in these relationships, that because we get so caught up that every relationship should last forever.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we don't look and realize that every relationship is a learning aspect, is a learning moment. And now I'm in this relationship, and I'm actually using what I learned, and I didn't do that in relationships before. I just kept making more mistakes.
Yeah.
I'm more patient.
Yeah.
I'm more compassionate.
Yeah.
I'm more honest. I'm able to hold space because of the space I've held, because of the space I've been in, and with the medicine, I'm able to hold space for my partner when she's going through her things. I'm able to hold space for that girl, for her daughter when she's going through her things. So this work is really, this is where I'm seeing the work has worked,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
more than in anywhere else,
Yeah.
in this new relationship. It's like, and I think that's something that we all need to remember in a relationship, is that we're holding space for each other,
Absolutely.
and we're so quick to think that it's not working. If there's an argument or something, it's not aligned. It's like, well, are you actually stepping back and dropping your ego and holding space for somebody in their process,
Mm-hmm.
giving them that space, and that's something I've really learned through this last relationship. And I'm really grateful that she's also able to do the same thing, and not judge each other for when we go through those moments of anger or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. It's
Yeah.
like we're both able to kind of step back and just be like, okay, this is your moment, go through
Yeah.
it. I'm not going to judge you for it. I'm not going to run away. It's all part of the game of life,
Mm-hmm.
the human experience. And yeah, I'm grateful to be able to do the work, with her, and yeah, things are good.
Yeah, and it's in a relationship that we really get to see how much of the work that we've done has actually, been embodied, how much of it is actually benefiting us.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're our biggest teacher, because when there's all that love and care invested, and present in a relationship, the slightest things trigger us. Those wounds get poked and twisted, and it's like, oh shit, okay, that's there. And yeah, it's beautiful to see your growth and to see your evolution, and to hear your wisdom. So I really appreciate you sharing all that you have and being so open about everything. I as I said at the beginning, like your story, I find it very inspiring. I love the path that you're on. I love the work that you're doing. You know, your service has had a great impact on me. So you know, I'll always be grateful for that. And you know, I love what you're doing and how you're showing up for others. And you know, I just wanted other people to hear your story, learn about who you are, and who knows, you know, if somebody out there wants to come down to Costa Rica and do a deeper dive into yourself. But first, do your own work. First, you got to have your practice down. You know, I think what you're doing is amazing, and I look forward to seeing how your path continues to evolve and expand. And
I think something that you said there was so important about showing up, you know, for your partners. And I mean, if you're not showing up for yourself,
yeah,
you cannot show up for anybody, you know, and that goes into from the smallest detail to the biggest detail, you know, and just showing up for yourself. One of the biggest things we try to talk to people about when it comes to like integration with all of this work is something you mentioned in the beginning, which is like, what's your daily practice? Like, are you waking up and showing up for yourself? Like, how much time are you giving yourself in the morning?
Yeah.
For me, this is like one of the biggest life changers. One of the biggest things that changed my life after I started doing the work was morning practice.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm religious about it. And it doesn't matter if I got a little hangover or how late the night was or how little sleep I got. I go, put the mat down, I sit, just take a breath, say good morning, Michael. Like, thanks for showing up today. You know, you got a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a big day, but like, you're here. Throw a couple stretches in, maybe put a little bit of spiritual music on, play some, whatever it is, but just take a moment before you jump on the phone or hit the computer or even make a cup of coffee. Like, you're shifting your nervous system like immediately with any of those things. You know, most people say, oh, I got to have a coffee before anything. It's like, well, how about just like taking a breath, you know, and like regulate yourself, show up for yourself, give yourself 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15.
Yeah, if you can't
start
give
small.
Yourself that time in the morning, you know, how do you expect to take on the bigger things that life has to throw at you if you can't even give yourself that 10 minutes? And if you choose not to give yourself that 10 minutes, then why aren't you choosing yourself first, you know?
Yeah, and how do you expect yourself to show up for your partner or show up for your child, and have any sort of space when, you know, to help them through what they need if you haven't helped yourself, if you haven't taken that space? That space is so important, you know, and even if it's only the beginning of the day or whether you can do it, you know, a couple times a day or a little bit before you go to bed, but that for some reason that morning, you know, it's like waking up, it's like being reborn every day. You know, we go to sleep, we have this sort of death experience, which isn't death, but you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
And you wake up and it's a new chance. It's a new day every day. So yeah, I mean, if I can give anybody any sort of, you know, recommendation, that would be it.
Yeah.
You know, start giving yourself some space every morning and start small. Don't expect too much of yourself, and watch how that can change things, you know, and that's the first tool.
Absolutely.
Tool number 1.
There you go. Cool. Thank you for those words of wisdom. I appreciate that. And I'm sure whoever's watching, you know, step 1, as you said, you know, start the day, take care of yourself, fill up your own cup before you go out there and do everything you need to do for the world.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it. I'm glad we finally were able to make it happen. And I know this is going to be edited into a masterpiece, but this has been without a doubt, the most interrupted podcast in human history. But we made it work. We made it happen.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Thank you, Zark, for doing what you do.
Thank you.
And creating this platform and the retreats you hold and the love you share. And I know you're always on that side of the mic, sort of interviewing people. So maybe we'll flip that one day and I'll interview you.
Yeah, man.
And we'll do another one of these.
Yeah.
And it's humbling and it's a blessing. And I appreciate you very much as a brother and as a friend and as a human, man.
Yeah. We're walking the same path together, man.
Yeah. And Johnny behind the camera, man. We appreciate you too.